All right, so to start sourdough bread, what I do is I take my sourdough start, which sits in the fridge, and anywhere between 4 and 8 hours before I want to start the whole sourdough bread making process, I take a quarter cup of the sourdough start, half a cup of water, and 3/4 cup of flour, and I mix it up and then just let it sit for 4 to 8 hours. And this is what we want it to look like. So it's super bubbly, and that's how we know it's ready. Also, it definitely smells very sourdoughy. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3/4 of a cup of this, which will be about 3/4 of what's in here, and then we'll put it into water. I just made some other bread, which is why there's some dough on there, but that's just fine. So I'm going to get 3/4 of a cup, and then I'm going to show you what it should look like once it gets in the water. Right, so when you pour it in the water, it should float like that. That's how you know that it's ready. If you're too nervous to put all of it in there to see if it floats, you can always just take a pinch of it, but it floats. All right, so I didn't film this next step because I'm the worst, but it's not very hard. So then to the water and the start that I've put in, then I add 5 and 1/4 cup of white flour. I use bread flour. And then I also put in 3 cups of whole wheat flour. And then I mix it until it's combined, and then we let it sit for 30 minutes. Okay, so the next step is you are going to mix in 2 tablespoons of salt into 1/4 cup of water. Now, the salt will not completely dissolve into the water. There's just too much salt for the amount of water, but stir it in as much as you can. And then we'll pour it into this. That's been sitting for 30 minutes. And we'll want to make sure that we get all of the salt out. And then we will mix it. So mix until combined. Doesn't take a whole lot of time. It's now one big cohesive mass basically. So doesn't do a whole lot. So we mix it up. And then we will let that sit. So at this point now, I'm going to, whoa, see, it's one big cohesive mess. So we'll lift that up as soon as we can. It only weighs a ton. All right, there we go. So, it's like the worst videoing ever, sorry. But that's what it looks like. It's pretty elastic, but I will now take a clean dish towel, put it over for 30 more minutes, and then I'll show you how we stir it. Okay, so now we need to turn or stir the bread. I don't know. So you're gonna reach down, pull up, and go into the center. And then turn, reach down, pull up, pull to the center. You're gonna do this all the way around. And that's it. So now we're gonna let it sit for 30 more minutes, and then we'll repeat that. And we'll do that, so we'll turn it like that 3 times. All right, so I'm getting ready to do the last turn. So now you can see the dough is really soft at this point. It's still pretty wet, so don't be worried about that. But it's nice and silky smooth. And so now, after you've done that 3rd turn, now we're just gonna put the towel back on top, and it will sit for, I usually do about 10 hours, but 8 to 12 hours until it just about doubles. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's time to put it in. All right, it's been in for about 8 hours. That's where we're at. It's got a little tiny bit of a crust on top, but like the tiniest. So now what I do, you can lightly flour your surface. I usually don't, but if you want to make it easy, you can. We just pour that sucker out. It smells delicious. And then we need to cut it into, and this is what I'm really bad at, is making 2 equal sized loaves, but whatever. All right. So now that I've got my 2 loaves, we're gonna let it sit. Let's move that back a little bit. We're gonna let it sit for 30 minutes, and then we'll put them in there. Okay, so now we just need to roll up the dough to create tension. So if you've put flour on your countertop, it makes it pretty easy. I didn't, but it rolls up still pretty easy. There will be bubbles in it, and that's what you want. So you just roll it up like this, like a little burrito, until you have tension. And then once you've got that, we put it in our greased bowl, and we're gonna leave it in there for about 45 minutes. Okay, so it has been rising for about 30 minutes. It's gonna still rise for a little bit longer, so I'll put that back over it. But the next step is, those are the 2 cast iron pans that we're gonna bake the bread in. So you take them and you put them into a cold oven. It's after midnight, oh my gosh. And we bake at 475. And so we'll let that heat up for 30 more minutes, and then we'll put that into the pans. Okay, it's been about a half hour more since we preheated the oven. So we'll take these out. And now, look at that steam. So we now take the bread and just place it in there. You then have to score it, and you go almost all the way down to the bottom. But that allows the bread to rise and not crack at the bottom. And then you just put some sprinkles of water, put it back in at 475 for 30 minutes. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. So we can take it out. So that makes it just a little bit. All right, it's been 30 minutes. So that's what it looks like. You can take it out. All right, there you have it. 2 loaves of sourdough. One thing to note is that even though it smells delicious, you cannot cut it and eat it right away. You have to wait like 2 hours because it continues to cook internally. So I think if you cut it right now, it'll be way too doughy in the middle. But there you go. Hope that helped.